Do you hate damage resistance with a fiery passion? Do you like challenging yourself with bad weapons? Are you a masochist? If you said yes to any of the following, I have the guide for you. How Yinz doing? I'm Ian, and this is my TF2 How to Killstreak series, where we look at the best and worst TF2 has to offer and I show you how to get a killstreak with it, because everything is a bad idea until it works. Today we'll be covering the Enforcer, so without further ado, let's get into it.
Mr. Johansson, could we have a quick word with you?
Well, sure, come on in. I'm afraid the house is a little bit of a disaster area since I had—
Get up! Code 6! Code 6! Go! Go! Use the taser! Use the taser!
We will start with the history and stats of this weapon in order to create a foundation of knowledge to work off of. Ahem! The Enforcer was added back in 2011 during the Uber update as part of the Man of Honor item set, and at the time had the stats of 20% more damage, with the downside being it took half a second to fully cloak yourself before becoming completely invisible with your watch. Eventually, however, this was deemed OP and the weapon was changed in 2012. The new stats were then changed to being 20% more damage while undisguised at the cost of a 20% slower firing speed and no random crits. However, this was generally considered to be a straight upgrade from stock, since shooting your gun whatsoever causes the spy to lose his disguise. This effectively meant that you got a 20% damage buff on every single shot you fired from your gun except the first one in a fight, at the expense of a 20% slower firing speed and no random crits, which are basically nothing stats in TF2. Since everyone basically viewed this weapon as a straight upgrade from stock, Valve decided to change it yet again in 2015 during the gunmetal update, so that 20% damage buff would only apply while you had your disguise on instead of when you had it off. However, this change made the Enforcer unusable since, like I said earlier, shooting your gun whatsoever causes you to lose your disguise. This means that effectively only the first shot you fire with this weapon gets the 20% damage buff, and that 20% is not enough to guarantee a kill on anyone. Thankfully, however, unlike many weapons in TF2, Valve quickly realized how garbage this weapon was and decided to do another rebalance to make it better in 2016 by buffing it in the Meet Your Match update, giving the Enforcer the ability to bypass damage resistances. Ever since then, the Enforcer has not faced any major updates of any kind beyond occasionally coming in for a hot bug fix to make sure that ability to ignore damage resistances is actually applying when it should be. If you want this weapon for yourself, it can be crafted by combining outer flame metal, a scrap metal, and a Electron J. However, I recommend just waiting for a random drop to give this to you, since it's not worth trading/crafting for. So to clarify what this thing actually does, it lets you ignore damage resistance with your bullets, and deals more damage when you have a disguise on at the cost of a 20% slower firing speed and no random crits. As you could probably tell, since firing your gun causes you to lose your disguise, the damage buff only matters if you can land your first shot in a fight. This can be useful against Razorback snipers, since this will allow you to two-shot them, so if you suck at landing headshots with the Ambassador even at point-blank range, there you go, you have another option now. But more realistically, there's only 3 kinds of people who use this weapon whatsoever. New players who just got it from a random drop and don't know what it does, players who wish to challenge themselves with objectively bad loadouts in TF2, and players getting dominated by a player who is using damage resistance to ensure they can't be killed easily. The most noteworthy tactic this weapon can be used for is dealing with wrangled sentries, which are otherwise near impossible to destroy without large amounts of team coordination. However, if you're shooting at a sentry with this gun, you can bypass the damage resistance the Wrangler gives it and force the engineer to decide between repairing their sentry or shooting your team. This can be useful when you're trying to punish engineers using the Wrangler to compensate for their bad sentry placement. However, 9 times out of 10, you're better off just backstabbing the engineer and sapping all his shit. And with damage falloff still being a thing with this gun, you're not going to be able to kill people from across the map as easily as you would like. However, a more common scenario you'll see this weapon being used is to deal with vaccinator medics, since the damage resistance is being bypassed by the Enforcer. However, since the medic's health regenerates and whoever is healing is probably overhealed, you're better off just retreating or going for a backstab if you want them dead. The situation where this weapon shines the best, however, is against Brass Beast and Natasha Heavies, who gain a damage resistance when they're below half HP and fully revved up, and this gun will be able to finish them off super easily, since below half HP for a Heavy is 150, meaning you can easily kill them in 2 or 3 shots depending on their distance and damage falloff. However, with these being some of the least popular miniguns in the Heavy's arsenal, combined with the fact that a Heavy below half HP is usually going to unrev and retreat for a health pack, combined with the fact that you can just instant kill anyone with a backstab, and you'll quickly realize that while this situation is far from unheard of, it's simply too infrequent to justify having an entire equip slot dedicated to dealing with it. The only other two situations where bypassing damage resistance comes into play are Battalion's backup soldiers and Fist of Steel heavies, both of which are things that you should not really be using your gun with. This is because if you see a soldier using the battalion's backup, you're better off just going for backstabs or retreating to safety rather than trying to pick off people with your gun. And while Fist of Steel heavies do get some bullet resistance while having the weapon deployed, they also gain melee vulnerability, and it's not a small amount of vulnerability either. In fact, it's such a massive damage vulnerability that if you end up screwing up your backstab and just hit them in the shoulder or whatever instead, if you just keep stabbing at them instead of trying to retreat, you'll probably be able to finish them off before they have a chance to turn around and hit you. There is, however, one other situation where the ability to bypass damage resistance comes into play whatsoever in this game. However, it's so insignificant I almost forgot it was a thing. Dealing with cloaked spies. That's right, you can shoot enemy spies who are fully cloaked and just do full damage against them, since this weapon bypasses the damage resistance that being cloaked gives an enemy spy. This can be useful every now and then, but generally speaking, like I said before, it's just too infrequent of an occurrence to justify having an entire equip slot for. When it comes to what weapons to use alongside this revolver, when it comes to watches, you have no wrong answers. If you're hellbent on getting a kill streak and want to cheat death as much as humanly possible, the Dead Ringer is the obvious choice for you. However, if your game plan is to camp a single spot and wait for the perfect opportunity to strike, the Cloak and Dagger is better suited for your needs. And if neither of those two suit your fancy whatsoever, go with stock. As for what melee you want to use, like I said in my stock revolver video, the Spycicle is your best option if you intend to go gunspy. This is because the Spycicle lets you escape Afterburn at the cost of temporarily losing your ability to use your knife, which, if you're going for kills with the Enforcer, means effectively no real downside at all. However, if you would prefer to deal with a little bit of Afterburn every now and then and not have to deal with losing your ability to backstab whatsoever, you're better off using the stock knife. This is because all your other knives require you to actively get backstabs in order to have any beneficial trait applied to them. However, the negative traits associated with them are active regardless if you can get backstabs or not. All in all, I give the Enforcer a switch 2 out of 10. The situations where this thing is actually beneficial to you are so few and far between that you're better off just using any other revolver 9 times out of 10. However, whenever you do find yourself in one of those rare situations and you have time to switch your weapons, by all means do so. That's all for now though. Like the video if you did, comment what weapons you want to see me cover in the future, and subscribe if you don't want to miss the next video. I've been Ian, and this has been my TF2 How to Kill Streak Guide to the Enforcer. And stay tuned, the Sniper's melee weapons are coming up next.